Hello and welcome to the Personnel File, the series where we look into the career and personality of some of Star Trek's iconic characters, and this time we're pulling the file on one of Starfleet's equally troublesome but talented recruits, Thomas Eugene Paris. As is usual for this series, we will include primarily the canon materials, that is the shows, and flesh out some of the gaps with memory beta content, which comes mostly from novels, games and the like, where it doesn't conflict with the primary. So, Tom Paris was born in 2346, Portola Valley, California, Earth, Sol System. He was the youngest of three siblings, the others being Kathleen and Moira. His father was Owen Paris and mother Julia. He was from a traditional Starfleet family. Not only was his father an admiral in Starfleet, but his great-grandfather, Admiral Daniel Paris, his grandfather, Michael Iron Mike Paris, and several others such as his great-aunt Patricia Paris and his uncle, Cole Paris. Growing up, he spent much of his time in his room, listening to music, playing games, and generally avoiding his father. He also discovered a love for early human space exploration history, such as the Friendship 1 program, and this grew into an appreciation of old vehicles such as automobiles, the precursors to private shuttles. He grew to love tales of adventure, including stories of old ocean explorers, and the more fantastical tales of Captain Proton. At the age of 16, in an act of rebellion, he took his father's shuttle out for a joyride and sank it in Lake Tahoe. Originally, he wished to join the Federation Naval Patrol, but as is expected of him, he applied for Starfleet Academy at the age of 18 and was accepted as he showed natural gifts as a pilot. During his time at Starfleet Academy, he took a shine to piloting programs on both shuttle and starship level, and excelled at them. He scraped by in stellar cartography and passed advanced subspace geometry, likely due to its relevance in warp travel. He took physical training in Marseille, France, but during a training incident in the Vega system, 3 cadets' lives were lost due to Tom Paris's error, and he covered it up. The only evidence of events was his word. 2366, Tom intended to apply for the helmsman position on the newly commissioned Enterprise D, but Admiral Owen Paris removed his name from consideration as he believed having a son immediately posted to the Federation's flagship would show favouritism, despite Paris having the required skill set to excel at the helm. On graduation, 2367, he was posted to the Ambassador class USS Exeter NCC 26513 and promoted to Lieutenant Junior grade. His Betazoid girlfriend at the time uncovered his remorse at the accident from his academy days, and he eventually confessed to his actions. The resulting hearing saw him dishonourably discharged from Starfleet in 2368. 2369. After a year, Tom had been wandering aimlessly doing odd jobs on Earth. Tom found his way to Paris, where the former Officer Chakotay approached him looking for potential Maquis sympathisers. The Maquis captain needed a pilot, and Tom wanted to get back into the pilot's chair, so agreed to join. In his first mission in 2370, his vessel was damaged by a Cardassian ship, and before he could return to a Maquis sympathetic world, the USS Bradbury intercepted his ship, arresting him and all aboard. He was sentenced to New Zealand penal colony in 2370, where he remained for a year before his knowledge was needed. In 2371, Captain Captain Janeway recruited him to use his knowledge of the Maquis, the Badlands and piloting skills to track down his former boss, Chakotay. During the USS Voyager NCC 74656 first mission into the Badlands, it was abducted by the Caretaker Array in 2371 and ended up stranded in the Delta Quadrant 70,000 light-years from Earth. Due to the death of Lieutenant Veronica Stady, the USS Voyager's flight coordinator, Paris was given a field commission, reinstating his position as Lieutenant Junior grade and made the new helmsman. He was also assigned to provide medical support for the EMH Doctor. During the Voyager's historic 7 years in the Delta Quadrant, Tom Paris, like many of the crew, was part of several remarkable achievements. In 2372, he became the first human to reach Warp 10, or at least something like the theoretically infinite speed. However, let's just call it health complications, rendered this form of travel unfeasible. The quality of his work deteriorated, however, and multiple disciplinary actions were levelled against him towards the end of 2372. This, however, was part of a ploy to alienate him from the crew to uncover a traitor in their midst using Tom's grey past as cover. In 2372, Paris helped in returning the stolen Voyager to its crew after a Kazon takeover. In 2373, he took part in a temporal incident that took him back to 1996 Earth. In 2374, contact with Earth was established through the Hirogen Relay Network, and Admiral Owen Paris attempted to reach out to his son. In 2375, Paris, with the aid of Lieutenant Commander Tuvok, Ensign Harry Kim, 7 of 9, and Lieutenant B'Elanna Torres, designed and manufactured the Delta Flyer shuttle to cope with the hazards of the Delta Quadrant. This year he was also demoted to ensign and sentenced to 30 days in the brig for disobeying his captain and aiding a civilization against the Prime Directive. In 2376 he began to display more erratic and tardy behaviour akin to his earlier days on the Voyager after he acquired the malevolent shuttle termed Alice. In 2377 he was promoted back to Lieutenant Junior grade and later this year married B'Elanna Torres. Within a year his daughter Miral Paris was born as the USS Voyager returns home using the Borg transwarp corridors. This marks the end of the show, but his adventures continued in book form. In 2378, the crew of the USS Voyager had a lot of doors opened for their careers, and he was promoted to Lieutenant Commander. One of his first actions was to travel to Boreth with his wife to look for her mother. By 2380, the USS Voyager had passed to Captain Chakotay, who picked Paris as his XO. Paris would only be appointed to the position with the loss of the prior executive officer, Commander Andrew Ellis. During 2381, the Borg invasion from the Azure Nebula occurred, during which the USS Voyager was involved, followed by the later phases of Project Full Circle, which saw the vessel return to the Delta Quadrant. In 2382, Michael Owen Paris was born. There's a bit of a gap here, as the next big appearance of Tom Paris is in Star Trek Online. In 2394, Paris had achieved the rank of Admiral in Starfleet and was stationed on Earth space dock. At this time, he had befriended one up-and-coming Jorrel Quinn. In 2395, Tom's daughter, Miral Paris, entered Starfleet Academy. At the close of 2409, the Federation had learned of the threat posed by an Iconian return, and Admiral Paris took a voluntary demotion to Captain. This was so he could serve on the front, coming to the conclusion that an Admiral's chair wasn't suited for him. In 2410, Captain Paris created the Delta Flight program with the go-ahead from Admiral Quinn, with the goal of bringing together the Alpha Quadrant's best pilots from Starfleet, the KDF, and the Romulan Republic for special operations. Most of these pilots were thrill-seekers or rebellious types, as Paris had once been. Captain Paris was assigned the captaincy of the USS Mercury NCC 47902 in 2410, one of 3 prototypes for the pilot escort class of light, fast and lightly crewed ships. He took part in the Battle of Starbase 234 during the Iconian War. Tom Paris is drawn to adventure, romanticising the prospect since his youth, from tales of ocean-faring, swashbuckling escapades to science fiction recreations of an archaic future. Paris detested being stationary and unchanging. This is either the reason, or cause, of the great friction he felt with his father, the Starfleet Admiral who wanted to force his son into the mould of a Starfleet officer, as befitting the Paris lineage. Acquiescing to his father's wishes and joining Starfleet over the Federation's Coast Guard, Tom nonetheless continued to act out in a rebellious way, chasing women, flaking on classes that couldn't keep his attention, and flying fast. He embraced this image of himself as a bad boy and was bolstered by his stellar reputation as a pilot. Despite this, we can see that he has a genuine love of flight, as he did apply himself to relevant classes, such as advanced subspace geometry, aware that skill alone would not cut it in Starfleet. This shows on some level that he was always seeking approval from peers and his father, though it's only in his later life that he'd realised this about himself. He continued to adopt and cultivate this image of himself as a bit of a rogue, like those he had been influenced by in his childhood, giving him an immature streak too. The biggest mistakes he made, covering up the loss of his fellow cadets in the academy, haunted him until he confessed, showing that at his heart he was a good person. Joining up with the Maquis was another mistake, fueled by his desire to get back into the helm of a ship, and he seemed resigned to his days as a washout with a criminal record, had Janeway not recruited him. During his time on Voyager, we see him adapt to the situation, though it's not a smooth transition. He retains his distaste for authority and a regimented lifestyle for a long time, but develops a respect for those around him, leading him to try to fit in under his new circumstance. As he matures on the vessel and through its numerous events, he learns to find a sort of balance, and I wouldn't be surprised to find this is the reason for his attraction to B'Elanna Torres, who struggles with some conflicting aspects of her nature. He also has a cynical streak that often surfaces in stressful situations and informs the more disastrous decisions in his life. His love of flight translates into a love of speed. He loves discussing anything technical around starships as long as it was related to going fast. He was also a big car aficionado, seemingly with no limits following back designs of the internal combustion engine to its origin. His love of adventure stories led him to holo programs, and he considered himself somewhat of an amateur holo novelist, writing his own scenarios for fun. As usual, I'll finish this video with some personal recommendations as to good Tom Paris-centric episodes, and I'll have to open with Vis-a-Vis, which shows good growth of Tom's character as he comes to the realisation that, oh my god, he's no longer as drawn by impulsive and rash behaviour as he once was. 30 Days has his demotion and sees Paris conflicting with loyalty, expectation, morality, and his own rebellious attitude. And Investigations is actually less Paris-centric than you'd think, considering he is the linchpin of the episode, but it contains good examples of how the early crew view him, the ex-con among the hard-working and honest crew. Anyway, thanks for watching this personnel file. If it wasn't for the mandate that Voyager had to remain episodic, I think we'd have seen a more consistent and fluid growth of character across the entire crew, but as it stands, some of the characters got a decent arc in there. I guess a benefit of it being episodic though, is that we can pretend Threshold never happened. Goodbye!